Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome back. I hope everyone is safe and doing well. As you know, in last 2 years, specifically after we were hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, the digital transformation was accelerated by multiple times, maybe 2x or 3x. And during this time, the digital solutions, the digital products started entering our day-to-day lives much earlier than we anticipated before the pandemic hit us. And this put tremendous amount of pressure on the automation teams. They had to deliver more within short span of time in order to support these fast-moving releases to the market. And this led our QA teams consider automation platforms that are having scriptless capabilities, AI capabilities, self-healing capabilities, and so on. And today, I'm very excited to have such a wonderful scriptless and completely visual automation platform called Leapwork that can help you in bringing up to 80% or even more saving from cycle time and effort standpoint. It can also help you to streamline your test case maintenance efforts. Leapwork also fits seamlessly into your continuous testing environment as part of your DevOps ecosystem. I'm very excited to have Suna from Leapwork, who is going to take us through the product's capabilities, how it can be leveraged to quickly build automation for our products and enterprise apps, how it can help in streamlining our maintenance effort, and so on. Suna, welcome. It's an honor to have you in the showcase session today. Would you like to give a quick intro and tell us a little bit about your responsibilities at Leapwork so that we can take this discussion forward?
Absolutely right. So thanks first and foremost to having me on. My name is Suna. I am Chief Evangelist here at Leapwork and member of the Senior Product Management team. So part of that team that sort of sets the course and the direction, if you will, of our automation platform, in terms of, what's the important things, what are less important, which customers to cater for, in what way, and so forth and so forth. These are the types of conversations that we're driving on a daily basis.
That's great. So, Suna, would you like to tell us something more about Leapwork as a company? And
absolutely.
What are your priorities basically from QA or testing standpoint? What you look at accomplishing?
So our mission essentially is to engage and enable the functional tester, that business-driven, business-oriented functional tester, essentially putting them into a position where automation is a completely different task compared to in many situations now where their job is mainly to just hand over requirements, right, to automation engineers, which will then do their best to convert that into just the right QA-based automation. So what we want to do is take that knowledge, that business insight, that experience in terms of testing, in terms of knowing the business application and how it works with the business. We want to, basically just take away that midway exercise of converting them into requirements, and you just go straight to automation. So creating a no-code based tool which is user-friendly and business savvy enough for those business users to, as I say, convert their key insight directly into automation, obviously on behalf of the enterprise and the overall QA effort.
Right. Looks like primarily focused around bringing velocity into test automation. And
absolutely.
Through no code, through,
yes.
Great.
Agreed. Right. Agreed. And coming from the fact that, one of the key challenges for many organizations doing their first exercises into automation, working with, you could say, conventional script-based approach, is that, momentum is hard to get, especially since the other momentum, the one delivering actual functionality to the hands of the customers, is also speeding up. So it's becoming a vicious circle in many situations. And that's typically when we start engaging with the clients. That's when they've had those initial experiences that it's actually harder than it sounds. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. No, I absolutely agree with you. I think speed is the need of the hour in current times that we live in. I think automation brings most of its values through, quick automation, right? We need to spin it up as quickly as possible, because with DevOps, with Agile, I think the window for testing is shortened, right? We have less time for testing. It's not like in waterfall, you take your own sweet time to test.
Exactly.
Right. But now, the window is fixed. The release time is fixed. So QA team has to finish. And if we do not have the right speed around automation, I think we will be lagging behind. We might need to, at the 12th hour, we might need to prioritize the test cases, and that might bring more risk into your testing.
Absolutely. And ideally, if our mission is successful together with our customers, that's one of the nasty sessions they can do without, right? They can, get past of that unpleasant situation in the 11th hour to have to go through those tough priorities due to, time running out on them. And obviously this is not something happening overnight in any case, but it's certainly, it's one of the trajectories that we help them set to achieve, not in years, but really fairly quickly, because as you say, speed is of the essence, and that train is already, moving ahead with full speed.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about Leapwork as a company. Where are you based out of? Where are your operation centers?
So Leapwork is a Danish company. We are operating out of Copenhagen mainly. That's where our headquarters is. We have locations pretty much all over the place. So we are located in the United States, both on the East and the West Coast. We have offices in India, Guangdong. We have offices in Poland, Sweden, Germany, Benelux, Spain. And obviously those locations, primarily sales outlets, but also some external developer and support locations into that. So we are a fully fledged global organization serving global clients, as you could say from day one, really.
Strategically located to make sure somewhere at any point of time on the globe, somebody will be available to help you.
Yes, exactly. That, and also the absolute crucial necessity. I think that's double bind, but still having boots on the ground to talk to our customers when they need to talk to us. And obviously, Denmark is at least 6 hours away from the United States, just as an example. So that's why, obviously we need to make sure that we're close to our key market, really.
No, thank you so much for sharing that info. I'm actually trying to understand, since you guys have a broad customer base, right? So what do you see your customers actually look for from automation standpoint during this time, specifically when the world is hit by pandemic, last year, and it's almost this year also, entire this year also, we did not go back to work. We continue to work remotely. So in this scenario, what do you think are changing from testing standpoint, and your customers changing expectations, and how do you address that?
Well, I think one of the key things to be mindful of, pandemic, certainly I think exacerbated by what's happened over the last 18 to 24 months in the world, is that the requirement, the need of being able to cater for and serve your clients' requirements, needs, and expectations themselves as directly as possible in directly facing channels has only been exacerbated. Fun story, just in the very early days of the pandemic, we were contacted by some global retailers of well-known brands who had, of course, they had an e-commerce solution, but it was second rank, right? It was the brick and mortar. They would have flagship stores all over the place. And obviously they woke up one morning literally with them shutting their doors, and they were feeling the pain very, very significantly, and not being in any way ready to take that e-commerce solution. And obviously there's more to it than just making a website work, for sure, but that was just one of their problems that they had to overcome very, very quickly. So that was, I think, a good example of what did the pandemic do? Well, it basically just drove that urgency of, it is no longer an elective exercise to say, gee, should I put this online? Should I make this available for someone? Yeah, that's basically what you need to do. And maybe going forward, that's where you begin.
Super. All right. No, that was a great insight, Sona. Thank you so much. And
Sure.
I think that really helps, right, to understand what our customers' perspectives are. And are we ready for that, right? It's not only from, software development side, it is also from QA side. Things are changing.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I think that's a very key point that you're touching in on right there, because are we ready for it? And having the right understanding of which, what exercise are we actually embarking upon? Many organizations being experienced on Agile and learning, what is the requirements, not just from a tool set, but also from a skill set and organization culture set. we're still in the early days when we talk about QA in that respect.
Super. All right. Thank you so much, Suna, for that. And I think it's time to have a look at your platform, Leapwork. So tell us a little bit about Leapwork overview, what it is known for, and then we can probably go and have a look at your, the product overview. If
Absolutely.
you want to screen share,
yes,
you are open.
By all means. Let me just click one magical button and see what happens.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yes.
Let me just kick off by briefly introducing ourselves. We covered some of the topics during our conversation, but still, we are a fairly young company. We were founded in 2015. Fun origin story, Klaus, our co-founder and CTO, he's been along, obviously serial entrepreneur is one thing, but also a consultant, seasoned consultant in many, many different contexts. And he was actually inventing the product while being asked by one of his customers to assess an existing test tool that they had running in their organization. And he came back to the manager and said, you don't want to keep that product, and I quit. And he sort of left that session understanding what was one of the key challenges for QA and automation. Essentially, that the ones understanding what needs to be tested are not the ones who can execute on it, at least from the conventional perspective. So that's what's going to be driving the storyline going forward. As I mentioned, we have numerous locations around the world. We are a bit more than 200 employees as of today, and we have received currently at this point in time in excess of $72 million in funding. And you can also have a quick peek at some of our key investors down there in the bottom. Now, just very shortly pitching the fundamental story. So talking to organizations, talking to our clients certainly today, what we see very clearly, and certainly back to your relevant question in terms of pandemics, these organizations are deploying, managing, developing, and so forth, more software functionality than they have ever before, fundamentally. So this IT-based organization, well, it's actually gone beyond that. It's now digital first, and what that means is that stuff is being made first and foremost for digital. That is the key thing for these organizations. They're turning increasingly into IT organizations. So implicit in all of that, these features and functionalities are being built in a rate faster than ever before, as mentioned already, more than ever before. And obviously, ending there on the right, the problem is, of course, keeping track of quality, ensuring customer experience, ensuring validity of performance of these applications. So we're not just talking, of course, customer experience and such. We're also very much talking about business continuity, those crucial parameters for each organization to know that whatever it is that they're doing, from building their new business enablers, that they will not be affecting negatively the ones that they have been running already into the market space. So long story short, automation within QA, it is no longer a conversation of, gee, this would be nice to do at some point. Our position is certainly for companies reaching a certain size, you simply, there's no way around this. You need to have a fully fledged automated QA exercise in place, and it needs to scale beyond a few core use cases. And speaking about few core use cases, that is in fact actually the challenge that we're working with. In the latest Capgemini World Quality Report, this number pops up that 15% of enterprises' total test scope at this point has been automated, which of course leaves 85% still done in a manual fashion. And putting that in the light of that previous statement that software functionality is increasing in a larger volume than ever before, needless to say, we see the outline of a paradox emerging here. And one of the reasons behind this paradox is that software automation is conventionally, typically, historically, something coming out of the IT department. So it's based on coding. It's based on the ability to have skilled developers standing by to care for this business requirement as well. The challenge is, of course, from an organization's perspective, these resources are scarce. The other challenge from a process perspective, so within the domain, is that these developers are not the same people who understands, what it is that we're testing and why we're testing it. So we might have a set of core technical test cases that we can everyone agree on is something that the developers will do, but the vast majority of it is coming from understanding the business processes and understanding how we keep these alive on an ongoing basis. And that is a challenge for the vast majority of testers who do not have the ability and the skill set to do any coding, really. So that's what we set out to solve. We have created this visual no-code business-driven language. And when I say business-driven, it's essentially a story of taking business generic activities. So as you can see on this illustration here, I'm starting a browser, I'm fetching stuff from Excel, I'm validating stuff on the screen, and convert those into automation activities in, you could say, the traditional technical way. But it starts with business expressions. It starts with business-driven questions, which enables and empowers that non-technical user to fully contribute into the course of driving this automation activity. And I think on that note, it might be a good point to just take a quick pause and dive into the demo side of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I think that was a very nice overview. So just a quick question here.
Sure.
So Leapwork, where it fits exactly in the continuous testing setup?
Good question. So our job, our mission in the world is to automate. So that means that whatever business activity driven test cases that you have, we're here to let you automate these. Our second mission in that context, because obviously knowing full well that the full delivery and ALM pipeline consists of more than automating the individual test cases, our job then is to fit seamlessly into those contexts. So obviously Leapwork comes with a fully fledged API that will allow us to play along with deployment management, such as Jenkins, test management, such as Azure DevOps, bug management, again, Azure DevOps or Jira for that matter. We fit into those things. And obviously, importantly, these tools are out there already. So these are existing investments. And our job is not to mess things up in that particular context, but to fit in and make sure that these tools are also, you could say, empowered by now getting that extended leg to make sure that feeds start running, if that makes any sense.
Got it. So it's at the core of automation space in DevOps, and you have the the plugins for different tools, ALM tools,
yes,
or defect
exactly.
Management tools. It fits seamlessly there in the ecosystem. That's
yes.
Great. Super.
Exactly. And the scope of supported systems are growing, and in that case, primarily driven by customer demand, because it's not only within test automation that you see things bubbling up all over the place. At least in my impression, this happens throughout the delivery pipeline, that new and advanced tools are emerging and enabling the developers, the testers, the product owners, and whoever it is, even more every single day.
Got it. Super. Sounds
Brilliant.
really great. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Let's have a look at the platform.
Yeah, let's take it out for a spin. So, so two short demos that I want to run by you today. So the first one is entirely web-based, and that's just to sort of tell the core story of, well, okay, how does a test case, how could it look like in Leapwork? It's going to be a very simple one. So I'm just going to be logging on to Salesforce, and then I'm going to make sure that that particular login is catered for and validated by the automation platform. Now, having done that, I'm going to take a short jump to the left and utilize another use case based on working now in a mainframe context, and just show you the purpose of that is to just give you an idea of the width of technologies that we support, but I think more importantly, the coherent approach that exists across these different technologies. It doesn't really matter if it's modern web-based or if it's ancient iSeries or mainframe. Essentially, it's the same approach. And I think that's one of the key drivers behind that communication to the business-driven persona in the testing effort. But let me just start with this simple web exercise here and briefly introducing Leapwork. So this is Leapwork Studio. This is where you go as a tester to both design automation, so building it, but obviously also managing it in terms of maintenance, setting it up in terms of orchestration. So when you have these hundreds or thousands of flows running successfully, then you can safely obviously set them up for schedule execution and so forth all from this particular interface, and obviously in the other end of things, following up of quality of your execution through reporting interfaces. So this is sort of a full serve environment that, as I mentioned previously, also will let itself integrate into those relevant port of calls, or as a test manager, if I prefer to see my results in Jira or elsewhere, then that's what you can do. Right. So beginning drawing automation, and drawing is the keyword here, as opposed to writing automation. We're going to be spending the majority of our time in the demo right here in what we call the canvas. And obviously calling it the canvas because we like to say, we're drawing automation as opposed to writing it.
So quick question. So is this something I need to install, or it is running in a browser?
Good question. Thanks for that. Leapwork runs on-prem. So Leapwork Studio that we're looking at right now is a Windows client running on a Windows PC. So it is locally deployed, installed inside your infrastructure.
Okay, super.
Sure.
So quick question, Suna, again. You said you are going to give a demo on web application, but my question to you is, what are the application Leapwork supports? What are the technologies supported by Leapwork?
So first and foremost, we've sort of taken you could call it a generic approach. So for web, we are piggybacking on the Selenium framework. Now, when you utilize Leapwork, you're not installing Selenium and grids and what have you. It's all coming out of the box. For desktop applications, we're utilizing the Windows presentation framework, which actually exposes a wide range of technologies, certainly a majority of them in a consistent way. And then, of course, there are the occasional odd ones out. Best examples being Java or SAP, where we then create dedicated adapters for those, but our job is to make sure that that doesn't matter for you as a customer. We will figure out for you which technologies to apply in those situations, unless it makes sense to specifically, as you'll see in a second, to have a dedicated SAP recorder so they know exactly which journey that they're beginning upon.
Got it. All right, so looks like you are prepared for almost all available technologies. Okay.
Yes.
Super.
Exactly. Thanks. Right, so let's kick off. Again, empty flow. Normally beginning here from the start building block, this is where stuff begins. Now, starting to draw the flow, what I want you to have in your back of your heads is the business process. So that is what the most business users are perfectly savvy in talking. It's those boxes connected with arrows. Each of the boxes will declare themselves in that business kind of way, like you saw on the PowerPoint previously. This is what we're going to be putting into life here in the demonstration here. And drawing it, building it, is simply a case of connecting to the building block and start to, you could say, draw or drag an arrow, which obviously makes way for the next coming object, or box rather, that you want to introduce into the automation effort. Letting go of the mouse, this menu appears. This is what we call the building block menu. This is where you choose between those generic actions, so finding things, typing things, operating a drop-down thing. Those actions have already been pre-configured, and having a palette of those available will allow you to automate all of these different applications within the different technologies. Now, I'm just going to launch the recorder here to speed things along a little bit, and when I do that, Leapwork will jump into the background, now exposing my desktop. You'll see this little widget here in the corner, which shows you that recording is going on. Let's get that started by choosing which application type that I want to launch. Is it a Windows installed application, or is it stuff in the browser, which of course is what I want to do today. Of course, you can choose which browser it is that you want to automate these things inside of. I'm just going to be typing in the URL of where I want to go. So clicking login salesforce.com, hit start, which will take Leapwork to launch the browser and navigate to salesforce.com. And now just simply opening up the browser window. Now, as a user, of course, I'm A, familiar with the application, and B, I know, of course, the use case that I want to do. So in this instance, obviously logging in requires me to work with the username and the password field. And notice what happens as I hover above them. They're being lit up, so to speak. So it becomes a case of simply pointing and clicking on these individual elements to illustrate or tell, if you will, Leapwork exactly which element it is that you want to work with. So starting with the username, clicking on that, Leapwork will suggest some actions that can be possibly accommodated, so to speak, into this field. Trying to put the most relevant on top, as you can see here, a type action going in. So I'll punch in the username. Here we go. coincidentally is the mail you can reach me on. And then continuing into the password field to again do another typing. So now I can sort of get the gist of it. We're converting each of these steps into separate actions. This time, of course, it's a password, so I'm going to make sure it's treated that way. So being securely dotted. And now with the username password hopefully correctly entered, we're ready to do the login itself. So I'm just going to click on the login button. So now I can see Leapwork suggesting to do a click instead. Of course, there are different types of clicks. I'm going to stick with the left click here, and now really waiting for Salesforce to do its thing, successfully logging me in. Now, upon logging in, given that we're doing a test-based demonstration, obviously I need to validate login successfully completed. So in Salesforce, I can get some profile information up here in the corner by clicking on the profile image here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that to get hold of the profile menu. And once I have the profile menu, you can see my profile name being displayed here. So I'm going to continue to ask Leapwork to get that. So fetching the value out so I can work with it afterwards for validation purposes. And then returning to the bottom of the screen, the widget to save and close the recording. And then you'll see Leapwork having drawn that business language for you right here on the screen. Now, very briefly, as you can see, these generic actions, typing stuff in, clicking on something, and fetching something. So each of these generic actions are then being paired or mapped, if you will, to those specific parts of the user interface, which corresponds to the given activity. So for instance, if I zoom in on this blue button here, you can tell that it's actually the blue login button that's been sort of superimposed into the building block. And that is what constitutes, you could say, the completed visual language of Leapwork. It's those intuitive business-driven steps, and then visualizing, all right, this click is happening here in your application space. And again, putting yourself in that position where you are, world champion tester of Salesforce, so you know exactly where you are in the application and in the business flow when reading through this language. So this is the sort of the essence of that visual language of Leapwork. And as you can see, I configure this language completely without having to do any code. Now, what I want to address now very quickly is, because obviously now we've talked about building the flow, but another crucial part of it is talking about maintaining execution of automation. That is by far one of the most critical issues for the total, you could say, return of investment for automation efforts out there, the maintenance side, as companies experience that this automation, for whatever reason, is not running by itself. It needs continuous care. This also applies to Leapwork because we are in QA and applications changes all the time. That's sort of the nature of the game when we're developing software. So the question is not to avoid maintenance. The question is, how fast can you get around doing it? And I think also very importantly, which resources are you dependent on to do it? So this is the interface that we present upon each run in Leapwork. First and foremost, you have a full video recording here to the left. You can see as I scrub down here in the bottom, we're taking through frame by the actions taken by automation. So we can see the automated application. We can see how that responds to the instructions over here on the right, which is what Leapwork is doing. So you have the automated and the automating application sitting there side by side, and you can follow each steps as they are being executed in detail. And as you click on them, it will take you to that section of the video where these events are taking place. So that's two pieces of crucial information to understand when automation breaks, what happened and when did it happen. The final thing that we're also providing for you, obviously within the flow itself, because that constitutes a process, you could say a journey from A to B. Now notice that the completed building blocks has this green highlight to them. So each of these building blocks actually asserts themselves and say, yes, I did the job correctly, and handed it over to the following building block. Simply, follow the green arrow here to read the logic of execution, so to speak. Notice the final building block having this orange highlight to it. That's because that's where we currently are. Let's see what happens if I go to the event where I type in the username right here down in the log. So clicking there, well, obviously the video takes me to that spot, but now also the relevant building block lights up, telling me directly, imagine this is your full end-to-end ordering flow in SAP. We're not going to be looking at 6 building blocks. We're going to be looking at like 50 or 75 or something. So figuring out, okay, why did I break and where did it happen? Some of the crucial answers needed to expedite the process of understanding error by error in these automation flows. Is this actually a bug? or did something else happen that I need to take care of as the automation designer, you could say. So these three approaches to information to give you insight of your executed information is a crucial part of why Leapwork is accelerating the QA process, because in fact, building the flow, as I say, is one thing, but really keeping them running is what customers find out the majority of the time spent, especially with script-based automation.
Yeah.
So
no, this looks like very simplified approach to have the end-to-end flow defined visually, which is testers friendly, and that's a very cool feature. And the other thing is we can also pinpoint if things break somewhere, we can pinpoint to where exactly it broke, right? That looks really great, Sunam.
Awesome. So now I have built this this piece of automation, which, as we just saw, works as intended. However, I'm sure the skilled testers out there will go, hang on, this could be improved somewhat. First and foremost, of course, it's being hard coded. So here's my username and password being entered directly into the automation flow itself, as well as, of course, the verification over here on the right, which is also specifically apparently looking for my username profile name. So that's the minute I try to log in as someone else, it's going to break. So let's talk about two crucial things. So one is configure this to be parameterized, so driving it with external data as point one. Point two, given that this is a login, and given that you're testing Salesforce, it doesn't take too much imagination to say, I could be using this particular feature a lot of times. Every single time I need to test a new feature or a new case in Salesforce, I need to log in order to successfully test it. So converting this into something that you can just reuse again and again, that's the first thing that I want to cover. Now, what you do is you select the building blocks that carries out that particular part of the task, in this case, the login, that you want to nominate for reusability. And then I'm going to call this, I'm going to convert this into a subflow, and I'm going to call it logging into Salesforce. And hit save. Now, the first thing that you're going to notice is that the entire functionality is now wrapped into one single building block, which of course it helps overview, but more importantly, from that building block menu that I introduced you previously, this is now a member of the family, so to speak. So if I type ahead here, logging into, you can see that the flow that I just converted into a subflow is now available just with one single click of the mouse. So now I have the entire login capability, and I can just reinsert that wherever I need it, which of course improves scaling. But I think in a QA context, more importantly, it drives quality, because imagine this, again, not a simple login, but your entire end-to-end flow, converting that into a subflow because you need to reuse it on different test cases. Well, what you now know is that every time this subflow runs, it executes this particular task in the exact same way every single time. And that is, in QA, one of the challenges when you have these long-running test cases and people get tired, they'll lose focus, they'll make little things differently, which could lead to an error, but it's hard to track that error. So that's one of the things that you get out from obviously reusing those features, and that's why we've prioritized to make it as easy as possible to get this done.
So it's like it goes to the object repository somewhere, and you call it back anytime.
Exactly. Correct. And the repository actually is right over here. So the flows that you build, the subflows you create, these reside over here, fully version controlled, built-in audit management, built-in flow control. So all of those things are catered for on board.
Cool.
Okie doke. So that was reusability. Let's get parameterization over and done with, which of course means that I somehow need to be able to work with external data. Now, there are many ways of doing that, all based on building blocks. Let me just take you through the most important ones. So starting with the database. So of course, any ODBC-enabled database that you have available and running on your system, just name that connection, and you can fire queries away at it and get the resulting output exposed into your automation. And I'm going to be showing you how does such an configured data building block look when it's completely configured. Another way could be having an API. So any HTTP request towards REST or SOAP-based APIs, and you can work with the payload, either putting or getting insights into as part of your automation effort. And then finally, and I guess this is the preferred weapon of testers everywhere, good old Excel. So if you have an Excel sheet with test data in it, then you can plug that directly into your automation flow, but importantly, without using any code. So let me just go ahead and configure this particular data source with a relevant data source. So beginning with pointing at the relevant Excel sheet. So I'll just go ahead and point to one, and coincidentally, I have one lying around here with some Salesforce logins in it. Now, second, define the range within this potentially very big data source with which I want to apply for this particular use case. And before you say anything, yes, never have passwords lying around in Excels, but forgive me for this short demonstration session here. Now I'm going to check this one up here. This tells Leapwork that the first row of this content actually is a header, or the label of the content here. So when I hit save, these labels are then used by the building block to make it sort of very clear exactly which data will be coming out of it. Now, the next thing I need to do is actively utilize or plug this into the flow. So start using the data source. So I'm just going to make a little room up here in the flow representation, shift the building block where I want it, rewire these green connectors. So, and in doing so, effectively including it into the execution, and obviously logically where I need it, I need the login information before I actually do the login, right? Now, what I do is I take the data and I drive it into the login flow like so. I want the username to go into the login, and I want the password to go in there as well. Now I've parameterized the part where the username password goes in. The final thing that I need to do to fully parameterize this flow, of course, is also to work with the assertion. So what I do is I add a little piece of logic, and this also is code-free in Leapwork. So I have a building block that will do a compare. So fetching the username, whatever it is, whoever logs in, there's going to be a profile name popping out of that one. So I'll take that and use as value A in the compare process, and then I'll look into my data source to check the corresponding value. This is what it needs to be, and if those two are happy, then and only then am I going to pass the flow. And I think it's an important feature to mention when talking about Leapwork. Leapwork will fail everything until you explicitly say that it's all right. So only when Leapwork reaches the very end of the flow and encounters this pass building block that you've put in there, will it say success and stop automation and put a green dot into reporting interface as opposed to the red one.
Excellent.
Cool.
Nice visualization. I really like the visualization, the way you have, organized the visualization principles. I think it's awesome.
Awesome. So, thanks for that feedback.
So where do I see the test case? And this is my test case?
No, the test case, bearing in mind our previous conversation, where does it fit into your CI/CD pipeline, but also very much test management. Okay. So Leapwork will fit into the test management core. So over in your test management system, you will have, you could say the written representation of a test case. Got it. This is the automation twin, and through the API, you hook them up. So the test management suite will be aware, if you will, of how the automated twin is performing.
Okay. All right. So we talked about, the test case creation. I mean, the scenario or the flow creation. We also touched upon some part of maintenance. So with respect to maintenance, I wanted to ask one question. Sure. You showed some examples on how to automate Salesforce, right? So the question is, let's say Salesforce in a release, they added some new, fields in a particular page that has been already automated. So how do we kind of, identify the changes that has happened to the page? It can automatically showcase, it can automatically pinpoint where the change happened?
We have self-healing on our roadmap. So it's something coming up during next year, actually. This is something that we see is evolving in the marketplace. So also something that we need to be able to address to help the customers to understand in the event of stuff breaking, not just due to new features and releases made, but also, and I think more predominantly, you're having applications with a very dynamic nature to them. So helping them understand, right, the strategy based on a locator ID, which is dynamic, it's not working. We need to figure out a new one and help you do that in the smoothest possible way. But in the event of you actually have to go in there and actively do an update. So let's work with this field here, which is the profile name, right? So let's say that they change the whatever conditions that applies to this so that it no longer works. Leapwork, of course, will tell you that. It says, I couldn't click this one, I couldn't get this one, and fail the flow. So, going back to the visual debugging, you know exactly where to look. So this building block has been lighted up for you, so to speak. So you go in here, you right click on it, and you say capture new element, and simply go back to the application recapture the profile name, which for some whatever reason has been generated using a new strategy. So recapture it. The flow goes back to normal. You hit run to test, is it working now? And if it is, hit save and you're done. So all of these aspects of maintenance is something that you can carry out also as that non-technical person, as opposed to be dependent on developer resources to take care of that part.
Beautiful. So
Awesome.
I do not need my testing team, no scripting, coding at all, right? Looking at the GUI, whatever I see in front of me, I think it's pretty much visual. So
yeah, exactly.
Super.
Exactly. Now, what I want to show for you here, let me just close down Salesforce here. What I want to show here is another use case, because obviously we've been working in Salesforce, latest and greatest, everyone supports Salesforce, or actually they don't. But the other part of the story is to say, in most organizations, enterprises, we're not just talking one technology, we're talking multiple technologies. And in some situations, especially within the financial institutions, we're going to be looking into one of these, a mainframe type of environments, which is obviously a completely different can of soup compared to latest and greatest web-based application space. So just briefly, let me show you. So this is a flow that will automate stuff in the application. Actually, all that is yellow is mainframe. All that is orange is web. Part again of that visual representation, giving you an instant overview, which parts of the flow, again, you need to imagine you have like 50 or 60 building blocks. Where are they working? Well, this is the part in the mainframe, and this is the part in the web. Now, anyway, working inside the mainframe, let me just launch the recorder, is exactly the same thing as working with working inside web. So you can see I get visual representation and highlighting of the individual objects on the screen. Leapwork will even convert representations of, say, a table, which of course, as we all, for those of us familiar with mainframes will know, this is not actually a table. This is just, indented text on the screen. Leapwork will actually convert that into a table representation and let you work with it as a table, just as a side note. But what I want to run by you now, very quick demonstration, is how you can also seamlessly take data originating, for instance, from the mainframe and utilize that in a QA context in a completely different technology. And again, we're going to turn to Salesforce. So you can see I have that subflow logging in right here again. So what's going to happen? It's going to fetch my username from the mainframe. It's going to insert that into a new contact space inside of Salesforce. So let's just quickly set that off. So I'm going to run it from here, which is inside the mainframe space. And now it's going to get me to the profile information, launch Salesforce, navigate into the contact section this time to start creating a new contact. So going in there and punching in my last name, let's just quickly go back into the last name field of the context. So directly fetched from the mainframe seamlessly and intuitively as part of a business process. And again, as you can see, with full video recording of the entire flow, starting in the mainframe, continuing into Salesforce for that debugging and maintenance purpose. So I just wanted to run that by you as well. And now I'll stop talking.
Absolutely. No, that is a nice feature that I saw today. I think, so tell me a little bit more about the logic that you are using, if that is not a trade secret. Is it like object recognition? I'm sorry, the optical character recognition, or it is
depends on. So we do have OCR on board. We do have image recognition on board for those hardcore use cases, typically involved in Citrix. When we talk in mainframe, we're using locations, and then we're adding a little spice on it. So as I mentioned previously, interpreting the screen and understanding that was actually a table. So start treating it as a table with rows and columns in it, right? When we talk web, we talk desktop, we create locator strategies, not using locations, not using images. I know there were images in the building blocks, but they are part of our visual language to you as the business user so that you can navigate and understand where you are on the screen. These little thumbnails are not being used for anything other than that. Behind the scenes, we're creating advanced locator strategies, obviously using the DOM tree in the browser and using the Windows presentation framework in those instances where that applies on the desktop side of things. And again, on the strategy level, creating a uniform expression for that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Suna. It was a great demo and looks like a pretty kind of, lightweight installation on your desktop. But at the same time, it is so much powerful, covering web, covering Windows, covering anything on browser, mobile.
Yes.
And APIs. So
correct. And also covering, multi-user context, collaboration context. So yes, it's running on my desktop right now, but obviously it's designed for a deployed installation with a central server component catering for multiple users and capable of executing these things in parallel and unattended and all of that, of course, as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so I think we had a great discussion, Suna, today. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
For coming in, taking time and joining me this evening and morning for you to talk about Leapwork, the test automation platform. Looks like a powerful automation platform that fits so nicely with our continuous testing ecosystem. So dear followers, a great platform you can have a look at, and in case you have any questions, you know where to reach out. And Suna, so is it like license based, or it is something that we can subscribe online, or how do you go about
so
that?
Leapwork is a subscription product. It's running on-prem, but irregardless, it's a subscription product. And how you get hold of it, let me just share my screen because there's some important information for you there.
Yeah.
Go to leapwork.com/trial and you're good to go. We will issue you a trial right there on the spot, so you can try it out for yourself. It's a fully featured trial, so there's no restrictions involved. You can also even deploy it in that distributed way with having the platform components running separately. And if you do have any questions, then you already saw my email during the demo. Alternatively, my colleague Jeffrey is more than happy to take any of your questions.
Thank you so much, Suna.
My pleasure.
All right, so Suna, again, I wanted to thank again to you and your team, Jeff. So I really appreciate you taking time and joining me as part of this knowledge sharing, session.
Yeah, thanks for having us.